So 255 today we're talking about some standouts in last night's match between LA and Chicago. And I think this was a game where once again it kind of started off slow for the Hawks where they were down early in the game. They were down 2-0 early. Trevor Moore scored a really nice goal and then Alex Turcotte, the Chicagoland native, scored a goal as well. And eventually they ended up winning 3-1. Chicago, they pulled a little bit closer with a goal from Connor Bedard and scoring that goal eventually, but it just wasn't enough. I think LA was able to pull away with this run pretty early on in the game. They were able to sustain that effort throughout 60 minutes and really showed. And I think in terms of Chicago, just a really weird effort once again. Just the other night, you'd think they would respond a little bit better with how they played against Seattle, and it didn't really translate over that well. I think the third period translated over to LA's first period in terms of how Chicago was trying to defend and how they were trying to play man on man. And LA at one point in the first period, they're up 15-3 in shots, and it wasn't really close. And I just think a lot of their guys were really effective. Joel Edmondson actually got the empty netter too, so that was another one towards the end. And on Chicago side, I didn't notice too many guys. I think when they lose games like this where they're relatively close, but not in terms of shots, I think their bigger players and bigger name players stand out the most, that being Chicago. I think outside of Bedard, there's a couple like I think yesterday, Ilya Mikheyev was noticeable. Teuvo Teravainen was noticeable. Tyler Bertuzzi was noticeable once again. And I thought Ryan Donato was good, even though he didn't score and produce points in this game. Regardless, if he didn't produce, I still think he was effective. And outside of that, there really weren't too many guys going. I think on LA side, they had a lot more depth that was able to contribute throughout this game. And a lot of their big name players, even though they didn't necessarily produce, they were still able to factor into the game in many different ways, especially in the ozone, I think. So that was the difference maker. I think LA, in terms of their depth, obviously they have a lot more depth. They have a really nice veteran and younger influx of talent, which is really intriguing because there was a point a few years ago where it really looked like LA was starting to age. And I think they've made some moves, and more so in recent years, where they've been able to really nicely blend in their younger core with the veterans that they have there already. And I think that's really helped the younger guys be able to get acclimated a little bit easier. And when you talk about some of the younger guys, there's guys like Brant Clark, who's playing full time with the team now, Jordan Spence, who's playing full time with the team, Quentin Byfield, who's playing full time, even Alex Turcotte, who's having a really good season so far and has played a full season in LA, which hasn't happened for him yet until this season. And there's some other guys in that mix too, like Samuel Hellenius, who is kind of on the brink of being a younger-ish guy, not super young, but younger-ish. And there's some other guys in the mix. And Alex Ferrier is another one off the top of my head. I think there's just guys that LA has where they can rely upon, and they can rely upon that younger speed, but also the veteran talent when needed, which is there's not too many teams like that. I think it's really rare to find a team that has that blend of really young talent who's also skilled and an older-ish talent. Like the age gap is a little wider, but LA's they do a great job of blending. I think they do a great job of being able to create off the puck, create on the puck, create a lot of chances, be involved in the offense. And certainly in this game, they were doing a good job of being able to create offensively and being able to shut plays down defensively. And they were just really noticeable. And it was really enjoyable to watch their effort. I mean, even though I'm a Hawks fan and I'm biased towards the Hawks, and I know they're not going to win a lot of the games, it's still fun to watch LA. Like I have to say, it's still fun to watch LA, California market, and then the players they have on their team. They have some really exciting players to watch. And I think the one thing this LA team is really missing is a premier, I don't want to say power forward scoring, but a premier scoring winger type player. I think that's something they could have addressed at the trade deadline. I still believe that now in watching this team because even when they lose a guy like say you lose. a Kevin Fiala or Quentin Byfield or both. Like the talent drops off on the wing pretty quickly for LA. And that's the thing. I think when you look at Dallas and them acquiring Mikko Rantanen, and I know the trade deadline is 2 weeks ago now, so it's out of their control. But like, what if LA just added one more premier player up the wing in the case of because there's a lot of unknowns. There's always injury issues. There's always situations that arise where players get hurt, especially down the final stretch of the season. And it would have been interesting to see how this team would have looked if they added that premier scoring style winger. Obviously, I think Mikko Rantanen would have been the ideal one, but outside of that, there's certainly some options there. I think Brock Besser would have been an awesome fit in LA too. So it'll be interesting. I am curious long term to see what the Kings do and how they're able to do it. And I still believe long term this team needs another premier scoring style winger. And they acquired Kevin Fiala a few years ago to try to be that, and he's been good, but I still think they need another player to take them to another level in that sense. But outside of that, they're good. They're certainly a team that can do some damage and certainly a team that can provide a lot of scoring depth. And that's a really good sign to see out of this LA team as well.